It's 6 o'clock, so let's call the facilities meeting to order. So call the roll. We're all here. I will entertain a motion to approve. Okay. Second. All right. Any changes or? Nope. All right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So we passed unanimously. So is there any public comment? Scott, did you get anything?
Have not received any public comment.
Okay. All right, so then we'll move on to 5. So the community for outdoor recreation, biking and adventure. All right, if you want to take the floor.
Yes, hi, thank you. Hi, I'm Jerry Porter, and this is Kim Wentworth. I am on the board of Corba, and we have a slide deck we'll run through quick, but basically we have been operating in Monoman Park for about the last 20 years, almost. We have about 8 miles of single track bicycle trails that we call, in addition to the double track that you all mow in the park. So they're used for walking, running, biking, and in the winter, snow biking, snowshoeing, and other things. But when it started, Corba was Chippewa Off-Road Bicycle Association, and we changed our name to be more inclusive, and it has grown dramatically. We started out as MAMBA, or Menominee Area Mountain Bike Association, and learned early on that we needed to partner with the larger group. And so now there are 10 different sites in 4 counties with 65 plus miles of trail that continue to grow. You can see that we do have an active website and do have a paid membership that helps support us, but mainly it's events that supports Corba, and Corba has needs for the funds for equipment and other activities. We have to date run the mini excavator in the park briefly for working on some new trails down there. That was part of Corba's equipment. But we can go to the next slide. And we have some pictures of the different events. So the big event in Lowe's Creek at the main trail system in Eau Claire, they hold the Red Flint Firecracker mountain bike race, which is well attended and is a weekend event that they hold in the kind of like our rec park or our over by the ice rink. They have that in Eau Claire where the curling facility is and some other things and the mountain bike trails behind it. But the next slide shows a quick video. We can go through it quick. I don't know if it'll play for you. I don't know. If not, that's all right too.
Oh, well.
You have to share the audio.
So how do I do that?
Oh, that's all right. It's just a nice video of our event in Eau Claire. So volume 1 is the main newspaper of events and activities in Eau Claire in the area. And our new board member is the owner and of volume 1. And he has really helped us do more with social media and video and websites and things. So and Nick Meyer has been a great deal of lifeblood into the Corba. There you go.
As always, be fast, have fun. 1 foot in, 1 foot on the ground, wheels behind the line. Go!
trails have some more features that are a little more challenging. But, they get hundreds of racers, all ages, kids, adults. So the firecracker's been a big part of Corba for years. And that's an example of an event at Lowe's Creek. We'll talk about some of the other events with the other slides. Next one. There we go. So this one's coming up this year. It's been very successful and really focuses on getting kids in out on the trails and riding. There's a national organization doing kids mountain bike racing, and it's called NICA, I believe. And there are high school teams across Wisconsin and Minnesota, and it's a immensely popular activity for families, and it is growing rapidly. So this kind of feeds that NICA mountain bike racing for kids. The next event we have on here is the Sadistic Century. So this, myself and others in the areas from the Menominee Rotary have been doing the Sadistic Century, which is a road bike ride, but we raise funds with Menominee Rotary, and the proceeds go to the endowed funds at the Community Foundation for Corba, as well as another nonprofit I'm involved with of Stepping Stones. So we have two endowed funds of over $20,000 that we've contributed from the Sadistic Century to those endowed funds at the Community Foundation that pay out to the local charities annually. So we're very pleased with our event. We get 130 or so riders each annually and put on a very challenging road ride on our beautiful Dunn County roads. And a lot of people like to come out and practice in our area and then come back and ride them again. So we think it's a great thing for bicycling and for Dunn County, and yeah, we're really happy with that. Some of the other events up in Bloomer, they do the Deer Fly chase, a race in the fall, another mountain biking event. Go to the next one. The Fallback Blast is a running event, so we kind of branched out a little bit. And that's at Lowe's Creek as well. And then the next event, I believe, is the Powder Keg snowshoe race. So it was changed last year because we didn't have any snow, but it's at one time was the National Snowshoe Championship in Eau Claire. So put on by Corba. So big event. Other community activities, they've been doing the Santa Cycle Rampage was kind of a favorite. They've done a Beer to Here, which starts at Pablo Center, goes out to one of the breweries and back. Chippewa Falls goes to Liney's. But just getting people out on bicycles and connecting with Corba. So, and the next slide, some of our sponsors and partners in the last year. But so that's Corba, but what's important to you all is Monoman Park. And I think what's important about Monoman Park is that we've enhanced the facility there with 7-8 miles of trail. Kim Wentworth is our trail manager down there who kind of leads most of the effort. For at least 10, 15 years, we've had a a kind of a trailer. It's a box of a semi truck kind of thing that's been parked down below. Nobody sees it unless you go into the park and down around. And inside of that is the equipment that we've come together. So we wrote grants from the Community Foundation. We've got a DR power mower that we mow our trails with. We've got some push mowers that we mow with. We've got a couple of nice steel weed whips that we mow the trails with. We have a nice backpack mower that we purchased with some of our funds. In the winter, we have what's called a snow dog. It's a small tracked vehicle that many ice fishermen use to pull their sled out in the ice, but we use it to groom the snow trails for snow biking in the winter. It gets through those skinny little trails more effectively than a snowmobile. And we did pick up a snowmobile last year before. Since we had so much snow, we got a snowmobile donated, and we were dragging the double track trails with tires just to keep them walkable and kind of groomed. You could actually probably ski on them a couple of years ago when we had so much snow. So we do have that equipment down there. And one of our favorite events, and it just happened about a month ago, Earth Day for probably the last 12 years, if not more. We have had the 8th grade from the middle school, or 6th grade, 7th and 8th grade middle schoolers out. And years past, they used to ride their bikes to the park, lots of them, and there was also a busing option. But we typically have anywhere from 20 to 50 kids that come out and help us clean up the park. And so we've been picking up garbage and other things, as well as raking our trails and cleaning up and making new trails. So they've put in a lot of work out there to put in the trails. And really, for a lot of them, it's just an introduction to the park and to let them know there's something beyond that little green space up on top, which I would guess probably only, I don't know, 40% of Menominee knows there's anything beyond that top pad up there. But so, we're a nonprofit. We're part of a larger organization, but really, you've met Todd Griffith, who works with Kim on some of the trails. We have a few core members. We typically struggle to get people out to help us clean up the trails, and it's a small group of doers that do things, Kim and myself and Todd and others. But we only take down trees that are across the trails. We aren't clearing the park. We are just we just cleared a tree across one of our trails last week, and we do publish things on Facebook under Menominee Area Mountain Bikes. And other information is through Corba. But yeah, questions?
I got a wacky question for you.
Wacky. Okay.
You think of the Dunn County Rec Park. Okay, that's us. And part of the Dunn County Rec Park is the area where the fairgrounds is, and part of the areas where the racetrack is. Would there be racing guys on their bikes that would think it'd be cool to run the clay track with maybe some jumps and different things like that?
Well, it's not a crazy question. Thank you. So a vision of a former Menominee resident was a skills park over there. You probably, if you've been on this board a while, you might remember Chris Peterson, who wanted to do the snow boarding thing over there. He's kind of moved on to Eau Claire and lives in Eau Claire, and has done Pinehurst Park in Eau Claire, and made that a very big success of some skills type mountain biking stuff, as well as some snowboarding and other features on their hill over in Pinehurst Park. But so riding on the clay track, not so much, but Corba and Eau Claire, and one of the big sponsors is Mayo, is putting in a large skills park. So a lot of the mountain bike facilities in the Twin Cities are putting in open spaces skills parks. So they have some small jumps and ramps and other features that are harder to ride in practice, and some of the younger folks, younger than us, like to go ride up on these things and do those things. Right. So they're real popular with youth. It's kind of like a skateboard park.
Yeah.
But skills park for biking. And I happened to visit one in Australia that was like the world's largest and most popular. It was just crazy how many people came to Blue Derby and rode the skills park. And theirs was paved actually, but the paving of the skills park cuts down on the maintenance. Many of them are gravel, and we've tried to do a little one down in the park a while ago when we had someone interested in it, and it's kind of faded back into the woods a little bit, but so.
It would definitely be for the Iron Man.
Yeah, it would be challenging.
Thank you.
Yes. So I guess I don't have any requests directly for you. I have talked in the past with others about the desire for facilities at the park, bathrooms and so forth. And I understand the constraints and the challenges that those would pose. I think that the biggest thing that you may consider doing, and we have done some of it, and I have worked with the GIS group here in the county to very accurately map some of the trails, or most of the trails. There's a few newer ones that aren't included in that mapping. And it's published in a very niche corner of your website. If you search to get to the GIS and know how to find it through those tools, you can get it. However, Kim Wentworth and I happened to be skiing up in Bloomer at Hickory Ridge, it's Hickory Ridge, probably 10, 12 years ago. And we're skiing in the middle of winter, and we come across a lady that's laying on the trail that had just blown out her knee. And if we wouldn't have skied by, she probably would have been laying there a very long time. But we got there and we had very little cell reception, and at the time, probably very little battery left on our cell phones. And we did manage to call the emergency folks and got that initiated. But our location in the park, and Hickory Ridge is a very large park in Bloomer, was somewhat of a mystery. And to get emergency services out to that location was much a challenge. Now, she was fine, other than getting cold and had a devastating knee injury, but eventually the snowmobiles and other folks from the EMS got out there and rescued her. However, the location was very difficult. And so we have signs on most of our trails. And if you've been out there, you may have noticed names like Mussy or Mo or Black Mamba or Sidewinder and those sort of things. But many of them are placed at intersections with the double track, and they're all numbered. So we had a system in mind when we signed it originally, and have done some upgrades, that those numbers at those sign points would be, they're crossings that EMS folks could get to. Now, the last time that 911 was called from the park that I know of was me by accident when I was cutting a tree up on one of the trails, and my phone had a feature that if you push the power button 5 times, it dialed 911. I hung up, and then they called me back, and all of a sudden there was a police officer when I came back up to the parking lot. But the challenge is locating someone. So if someone's seriously injured in the park on a bicycle or running or whatever, locating them may be challenging. And I did have one other opportunity to cross with the police out there. There was an interesting situation where I was mowing way north to the end of the park by the paved trail on the other end. And somebody had reported my car as an abandoned vehicle in the park to the police, which I feel bad. It was my car. It was just parked there for having the mowers out there. But anyways, the policeman eventually found me mowing, and I explained to them, and I had my ID on me. Luckily, it was kind of an odd situation, but they actually drove the paved part, the bike loop out to the north end, and were walking around looking for me. But in any case, long-winded, but the request would be, work with us on signage. Signage is always the most challenging piece in the park, for mountain bike trails, for any trails, where you are, and communicating that with EMS. And I did talk with the firemen this spring when they were burning, so they burned on the south end of the park, about that, and he had offered to talk to me about it. And I asked him how they found people in the park if they needed to, and he said, "Well, I know this place really well. They would call me." So they have one guy that knows the locations in the park, but so. So we have a start with the GIS group here in the county, and if we could publish that better or get things out there better. And we do have signboards. So Corba and Kim and I and others have installed those kiosk kind of boards at the both ends of the park. There's one on the south main entrance and there's one on the north, and that's where we put our bike repair stand. So I wrote a grant and installed that years ago. That still is on the bike path. So we're happy to partner with y'all on improving the park and doing whatever we can to make it better. But the mapping is and the signage is always difficult, and we would always appreciate help on that.
Yeah, we can definitely work together on that.
Yeah, be great.
And there is in the works for putting a restroom in the park. It's one of our capital improvements
All right,
in the works. So
that's awesome.
that would be very nice.
Any other questions?
I had a quick question. So do you mow the whole park? Like, I mean, that big loop through the fields that you as.
No, so there are double track, what we call double tracks. So that's where we most people walk, and we can drive our cars to get to the remote spots to do maintenance work. So the county does that. And I believe they used to contract it out over the last years, and I'm not sure where that's at now. But they mow the top space and then a little space down by our trailer, I think, and then the double track stuff. But we mow about 8 miles of single track, which is,
Through the woods.
yeah, the twisty stuff through the woods. And it's a lot of work.
I know. I worked on hiking trails.
It grows really fast.
Had that DR trimmer out, so no.
Probably him behind it, yeah.
Noisy thing. It looks wonderful.
Anyone else have questions? All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so item 6 is transfer station update. Do you want to
Yes.
start us off?
Yes, I will start us off with that. So I did get a quote back on doing the phase 2 inspection at the transfer station to determine whether there is any contamination there or not. They would do soil boring samples, testing runoff areas, the soil there, multiple things they would do, testing the water, the well water and stuff. So the whole total cost would be $8,400 for this, is what was quoted. Now, doing that, as I said before, if there is determined that there is contamination, then would be the cost of cleaning up that contamination. It has to be reported to the DNR. It has to be cleaned up. It can't be just left to sit there. So I guess that's where we're at, our choice of, what is going to happen next, whether the transfer station is left as is, if there's this inspection done, testing for it, or if it's pursued with selling it to someone that takes on the responsibility of any contamination. Or the other option of leasing it out. So that's more information that we have. Any questions or I guess any discussion on where this goes from here?
Yes, I do have a question. Scott, is there any, do do you anticipate that there would be a danger of it being declared like a brownfield? Or to that level where where it would take intensive, cleanup?
From what, when I met with the company out there to take a look at what we had for the phase 2 inspection, nothing popped right out to indicate that there's anything for contamination. So I guess I would say no on that. But you never know until some testing is done.
So, the decision before us is whether to test or not to test. And Supervisor Bjork?
Yeah. I don't think we should test, coming away from the capital improvements project and the need that, we can see in front of our eyes is there for the dollars that are probably not going to be there. I don't think that, this is a project that we ought to get into when we don't have any idea whether it's going to cost us, $8,400 or $1 million. We don't know what it's going to cost us. And I just can't see a project that we don't know what it might cost being more important than the capital improvement projects that were presented to us that need to be done. And I think they're gonna have a hard time getting the money for it. So I would urge people not to open up that can of worms.
I agree, but can't we sell it without, or put it out out to sale with, as is? I mean, or is that like a no-go, or?
I guess that was the original question that was brought to the committee was, we had someone that was interested in purchasing it, would take on liability of any contamination, the responsibility of it. They would purchase it as is. So that came the question of how that had to go about. And so in finding out about the phase 2 inspection was part of the investigation of what we would need to do in order to either find out if there was contamination or if we elected to sell it without finding out.
I would be all for selling it, or at least putting out for sale, or put out for bids or whatever we have to do. Sell it as is. If we don't get a bid that we like and nobody would want that, I guess then I would come back and negotiate from there. But having one buyer out there already that's interested, I mean, I would be more inclined to pursue that route.
Did this party indicate what their plans were for the property?
Person indicated that they do have a business here in Menominee and was looking for a place for storage at this point.
I wonder, because when this all kind of started, it kind of got stuck because we didn't know if we could sell our lease without knowing. So I don't know
Yep.
if that's changed or if it's gonna end up in the same kind of
Well, and
waiting.
that's the information like, the DNR, when I talked to them, they indicated that, yeah, you can sell the property without testing, without knowing. Your phase 1 inspection really looks at what the property was used for. And before Dunn County put the transfer station there, it was most likely some farmland or whatever land it wasn't used for anything, and then Dunn County started using it for this. So that would be your first thing, phase one, what it was used for, and then a phase two would be because it was used as a transfer station, you do a phase two to find out if there was any contamination in the soil. But, you know, and doing the phase two, like I said before, it gives you either a report that shows that there's no soil contamination for selling purposes, or it turns up that there's contamination and you must clean it up. So I guess selling it without a phase two inspection, then it would be for the buyer to take on any responsibility of any contamination.
So just to clarify, according to the DNR, we can sell it as is without incurring the county incurring liability.
Yes,
Okay.
as long as the buyer would take on that responsibility. Ultimately, because Dunn County did use it as a transfer station, had that activity there, any future responsibility of liability could come back to the county because they operated there. But if you have a buyer that is, you know, it's written up as is, I mean, they are willing to take on the responsibility of it.
So it would have to be spelled out.
Oh, definitely, yes. I
Okay.
would say so. It would be in the best interest of Dunn
I-
County
I
to
would
spell
think
it
so
out,
too.
yeah.
I'm an insurance man's daughter.
Yeah.
Do we have a dollar amount that's gonna be for sale, or do we just do it by how much land is worth at the time, or?
As far as the sale price, I have no idea on that. It's something that would need to be determined, or if that would have to go out on bid. And I know Chris Scorpla was looking at some of that, you know, the county has a buyer, they could negotiate with that person and come up with a dollar amount for them to purchase it. And that wouldn't have to necessarily go out to bid.
Right, so I'm hearing that we don't want to do the soil tax. Gonna let that go. All right, do we want to sell it? I guess that would be the next thing.
And I suppose that would be,
Could
probably,
just let it sit, right?
probably that would be, a motion to, you know, recommendation from the facilities committee to go forward to pursue selling the transfer station property, I guess. I don't know if that would be how it would go, or I don't know the whole process. I guess, you know, that could be brought back now that we've decided to not go ahead with the phase two inspection. Then we get the guidance of it. It comes back next month as to what we go forward with.
The,
Yeah, it's a
okay,
discussion.
if now the land, if we did sell it, would that have to go to PRD to change the description of the land or anything like that? Or, you know, like right now, if there's a business, would they have to go through that to make it a business property?
I'm not for sure what it is zoned at right now. If that's zoned a commercial. Because it's.
Well, if it's commercial, then I guess it wouldn't be no problem.
Yeah,
It's commercial behind it because that's,
that's,
was a
the landfill. was-
landfill be toward it too, so
Yeah.
it had to be
construction landfill.
zone commercial.
Uh,
Okay.
I'm not really interested in selling it. But if the committee would like to sell it, I think, we would be foolish not to put it out on bids. The last thing, that you would want would have, disgruntled, potential buyers afterwards saying, okay, Dunn County, why did you make this sweetheart deal with somebody without letting everybody know? So, I mean, you can put out bids and you could get those bids back and you could say, well, I don't know if that's worth us to sell it or not, but I think everybody should have a chance at it. You put up a piece of farmland for sale and they're just about tearing down the road to get there to buy it. And Randy, isn't there a fair amount of ag land there yet?
No, not on that parcel. That's a 10-acre parcel. That's absolutely no ag land. The 20-acre parcel next to it is all ag land.
Okay, so this is just the buildings site.
That,
Right.
that would be my
So-
suggestion, we not sell the.
Yeah, so the interested party is interested in the transfer station buildings and the 10 acres, also expressed interest in the 20 acres. But that would be all four of the county board of supervisors to decide what they would want to sell.
Well, like I said, whatever we do, I'm interested in a bid process. I don't want to be accused of, how come you let one person go, and nobody told me about it?
I'm for selling it, but I do think it has to go through a bid process because there was at least 3-4 people that were interested in it before. And they should all be available to bid on it again, with that criteria. I don't know what happened last time, but it sounded like there's a lot of people that didn't want to sell it at that time. But I think now has changed since then. We've all got the recycling center or recycling for the townships, and it's been working out good for most townships. It's not going to go back to a county recycling center.
Right. Well, what happened last time was the question of what to do with the transfer station, whether to sell it or lease it. And it was decided at that time to pursue leasing. And then it was the question of the county's liability leasing it to someone and all that stuff. And then this came about, and so we're exploring options again. So yeah,
Made a circle.
made a circle, yeah, kind of.
Does anyone, you want to weigh in?
Well, yeah, I understand why if you were gonna be leasing it, then you would really have to do the phase 2 inspection. There's, because you would be incurring liability. But
Mhm.
I think in an as-is proposition and, making sure it does go out to bid, I agree with that. It could be a competitive process. I think we need to find out what it's worth.
Yes.
Do we have any use for it yet? Is it valuable to Dunn County? Probably not.
I think it would take 200,000 to fix the building, right?
That was, once solid waste and recycling closed, there was a company that came, looked at the buildings and determined at that time, and that was a few years ago, that it needed probably $225,000 worth of work, repairs. And, at the original thought was that highway was going to use it for storage. That never happened. And we've never pursued any use of it. No one has come up with any ideas of use of it. So far, it's been a home for pigeons.
And I believe Chris told us last month that we couldn't actually revive a transfer station there because we need a retaining pond, which was,
Yeah.
big enough.
Yeah, it wasn't built the right way. It was built in the early 90s, and that was probably before like retention ponds and all that were put into place. Really, for the water running off of there, it would need to be really redone, and there's not a lot of room there to put in retention ponds to make it the way it should be.
Probably the other piece of property would have the potential.
Yep, and that was the thought process when the transfer station was operating from solid waste and recycling, was that the transfer station itself was past its life by 15 years, that it had been used twice as long as it should have been. The thought process was that the 20 acres next door would be the spot to build a state-of-the-art facility, have all of the retention ponds for any water runoff, stuff like that. And it would be a much better site.
So it sounds like, so I don't know if anyone wants, do we just make a recommendation to look at like assessing the piece of property so that we can go forward with a potential?
I think the next steps to find out would be, appraisal of the property, find out what it's worth, and get some, direction as to where to go. If that's what, the facilities committee wants to find out options and then, as far as selling, and then go from there. And if it's passed at the facility level, it goes up the chain, up to the county board.
Was that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I will get working on getting
ball rolling and
information and bring back next month for an update.
what we need to, yeah,
Yep.
do to
Mhm.
Keep moving.
keep,
Yep.
yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. So then we have staff and recreation reports. Fair board?
Good evening. It is 63 days and 9 hours and 45 or 15 minutes till the fair starts at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. Just thought I'd let you know that. We're on the countdown. And that being said, I passed out a schedule. We might be adding to this. There's some other things in the work that we might be planning for the kids. For example, a stuffed animal show for the young kids that aren't allowed to bring an animal to the fair, but might want to do that. So we're most likely having a stuffed animal show. And there's some other educational pieces and so forth that the small animal committee is working on as far as the cats and the poultry and some demonstrations. Actually, Zach is running with that from Extension, and his summer intern are working on a lot of those projects as part of our educational piece of the fair. So we're excited to have them take a bigger part in that. But this is our most up-to-the-date schedule as of last week. So this will be posted on the website for people to look at and plan ahead. As far as animals, the weigh-ins happened and we have 34 beef, 38 pigs, 10 sheep, and 4 goats that have weighed in for the auction. There's approximately 90 kids in the Meat Animal Project. So if everybody brings everything, we should have a lot of animals there. Because in addition to bringing those animals that they weigh in and plan to sell at the auction, they also have to bring breeding stock. So you can at least double those numbers. So we will be moving ahead and finding spots for all of those. Our open show, Summer Showdown, is open for entries right now on the website. We've had some people really interested in that this year. Last year was our first year. We just were getting our feet wet and it was very successful, and the word has spread that we are doing this again. We also have the Super Senior Showmanship Contest that we'll be doing again. So if any of you want to come and show an animal, please do so. I did that last year. It was kind of fun. Hadn't been in a show ring for a long time. A few months ago, I also talked about the Carnival Care Act and Ride Act that we were trying to get sponsors for with congressmen to sign on to. That is we're still trying to get Congress to move forward with that. And that it's not really a immigration issue. It's more of a labor issue for the carnivals. For example, from 2016 to 2023, the carnival industry dropped by 50%. Meaning that 50% of the carnivals that were here in 2016 are gone. So if you have a carnival, you almost have to really hang on to them, and because you might not find another one. And there is I think there's 5 fairs in the state right now that do not have a carnival. I'm not sure what they're doing. So the fairs across the state have been making numerous calls to their representatives and congressmen and senators, I should say. to sign on as a co-sponsor, because before it can move forward, they got to have enough of those people signed on. And of course, we're getting close to the end of their sessions. Fair entry will be open in June for our electronic entry system. Fair book is done and out there on the website for everybody to look at. We've added a few classes. We updated some items for safety of exhibitors and the public coming through the barns. For example, we'll be closing the barn early on Sunday at 4:00 prior to, or at 4:30 PM prior to the exhibits being released at 5. Basically, it's a safety issue because you still have people coming through the barns with strollers and walking through, and it's dangerous when you're trying to move animals out and so forth. So made a few changes there. We're also putting in more regulations as far as using fans in the barn. Not to overload the electrical and so forth, because we only have so much that we can put there. So, and they all have to be up where people can't get their fingers in them, the little fingers of the kids. So that's a big push that we've been doing, is trying to improve safety. But other than that, it's Christmas in July. We're going to have cool weather. Say a prayer for us that we can have a fair this year without cancellations. So, anybody has any questions?
Better watch out or there'll be snow.
That's okay. I'd take snow over the heat. You can always dress warmer, but. So, yep.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Great. So 7B. Facilities and parks.
All right, as far as facilities operations, I had first seasonal staff member come aboard May 6th, started mowing parks. Our second seasonal will begin June 3rd and assist with mowing parks. So they'll both be doing that. Staff have been busy with mowing and weed trimming, repairing water leaks. We've had some at the Judicial Center, in the jail area. We've had some. Those have been getting repaired. And then we had an underground water leak at the rec park in the infield of the racetrack that we had to get taken care of. That wasn't too bad of a leak, so that was repaired fairly easily. Projects coming up, the staff have been continuing to work with Human Services on office moves, and while they've been doing that, they've been patching holes in walls and updating the paint, going to the agreeable gray paint that second floor has. It's more of a modern color and looks a lot better, so working on that. I worked with the highway department on determining what we were going to do for the rec park payment that's in capital improvements this year. So we laid that out as far as that. They're looking at probably the first week in June of milling the pavement from it'd be the North 17th Street entrance, and then in north of the cattle barn where it's all broke up and was patched with gravel, and then in front of the grandstand and up to meet the road that is in front of the city water building. So that'll all get milled out and then repaved. That'll improve it a lot. So that'll be done before the fair. I don't have any updates on the fleet. Everything is running good with the fleet there. I did send out the financial report through April. It gives a better idea of how things are going, and things with the budget are going quite well. We have energy. Dan will give us a report on that. It's our staff report. We met with a company and got some recommendations as far as what can be done to save energy and upgrades that we can do. So Dan, if you want to take that away.
Yeah, so put together a little report for you there. And I think one thing I do want to, I guess, summarize, as I wrote that report, it referred to doing all of those projects at once. So that that 15-year payoff is related to doing all of the projects at once. So we did reach out to the company to kind of get an idea for a payout for the geothermal system for judicial, with that being the HVAC and judicial essentially being a high priority either way.
Yep.
So that one doesn't have a full payout. It does provide savings. It would essentially pay for about 3/4 of the project over a 25-year life cycle, just doing that geothermal there. And all kinds of caveats thrown around that. I mean, this is not a full investigate or a full engineering design around how they would do that. It talks about a geothermal field, an independent geo field for judicial. We do have them looking at utilizing the existing geo field and potentially a little expansion there, which may cost less. But yeah, I think the big summary there is we had looked at solar panels to cover the judicial center, this building, and the neighbors of Dunn County, and then a geothermal and whole HVAC upgrade for the judicial center. When you put all of those together, this company says that it would pay for itself in 15 years and then start giving back money. Obviously, that's a large capital expenditure. And so something to kind of think about as it relates to that. We worked with a company who kind of gave us an idea of where we would go. Any work that would need to be done through an RFP process as well. So that's where you kind of have these vague numbers of, it should pay itself off in 15 years and how that whole thing works. The company that we did talk to has their model is they guarantee the savings. So if you don't get that savings in a year, they will give you the money in order to get that savings. So they do kind of have a little bit of skin in the game as it relates, but that would be all kind of part of that bid process. As somebody says, hey, we're going to implement this, and this is how much you'll save, and how that whole thing works out. In addition to that, this kind of all started with looking at getting a grant from the Public Service Commission, and those grants would still be available to us, and that would kind of come off of the top of that upfront cost, or well, maybe not the upfront cost, but it would lead to some somewhat immediate savings through that whole project. So I don't know. I think Scott and I were intrigued. I don't want to speak for you, Scott, but
Yes, very much.
But I think it was exactly what we were looking for. Felt like that was it's worth it. But obviously, funding is what funding is. So we would need to look through that.
Yes, it's a big project. One of the things that has already been looked at through capital improvements was the HVAC controls at Judicial Center, which that project has not been done. It didn't make sense to go ahead and spend the money on the controls if we're going to change other things that affect those controls. So that money had already been approved. We're looking at I put in for a capital improvement for replacing the chiller. The chiller at the Judicial Center is 1998 vintage. It's old. It uses electricity. So replacing that in with the geothermal system, you won't be using as much electricity. You would get rid of the chiller. You'd get rid of the cooling tower that sits outside. Those would be gone. Geothermal system would take care of getting rid of your large hydronic boilers that are in there, basic large water heaters. They're sucking a lot of natural gas. Those boilers run 24/7, 365. The current HVAC system in that building is a dual temp one. So your thermostat in that building is constantly heating and cooling and maintaining that differential. So you got boilers that are heating water to warm it up, and you got a chiller that's running to cool it back down, fighting each other. In that time, in that day, that's the systems that they put in. Now it just does not seem effective because you're fighting each other there temperature wise. This system in this building, the geothermal system, does the same thing. The thermostats do the same thing. They put in an auto mode and you're heating up to a temperature, you're cooling down to a temperature. They're set up to a 3-degree differential, but you're not burning gas doing it. Your heating and cooling is coming out of the ground. That's a big difference in energy savings. Burning all that gas. We hardly use any natural gas here. And this building, natural gas is to maintain a low temperature of the backup boiler in case it's needed. The other natural gas that is consumed here is for the emergency generator for test running. Otherwise, you're not burning any natural gas. So it's a big difference. Some of the things that, we would look at replacing here capital improvement wise would be addressed with a geothermal system.
Dan, I missed the dollar amount on everything altogether that's gonna be paid for in 15 years.
No, you didn't.
You didn't give it to me.
Didn't give it to you.
Oh,
So we did get a dollar amount. The thing with that is they looked at replacing LED light fixtures throughout the judicial center. And so wait a second, we have converted a lot of those fixtures already to LED. So I got them a blueprint showing the fixtures that have already been converted to LED. So they have to come back with their numbers. Plus they are investigating the ability to use our geofield here, add on to it, use this one. That would considerably cut the costs. So once we have those costs, then we can present you with a number.
Yeah. And I would argue, like, it's a budgetary number because this would all have to go out to bid. But I think obviously for you to be able to make decisions about how should we go forward, obviously a number has to go out there.
I got the number of the guy that gave me about some hair tonic stuff. And in 10 years, I was gonna look like one of the Beatles.
Right?
So I'll pass that along to you.
Can I borrow it?
Yeah. But then, seeing that we're talking about enhancing our appearance, that leads to my other thing. Will we be getting a map that would be showing the proposals for solar panels and where they'd be located on our Dunn County campus?
So once again, I mean, I think to kind of protect an RFP process, I think
What's an RFP?
A request for proposal. So essentially we have to put it up to bid. So we have talked with one company to be able to give us an estimate about, what's possible. But what they told us doesn't really matter. Ultimately, then we're going to come out and say, all right, we want
Well, I would assume that
solar for this, that, and the other.
so many square feet of solar panels is what it's going to take, whoever provides it.
Yep.
I'm just asking to
Yep.
see where the
So,
proposals are
yeah.
for them to go.
So
Mhm.
what I can tell you, the proposal that they had, so one of the big things about solar panels is the power line run from the panel to the service location of your building is what we were told is one of the greatest expenses.
Yep.
So you need to shorten that distance as much as possible. So they had proposed solar panels out back here, back where the tower
Kind
is back there.
Kind of back where
essentially.
the smokestack is and
Yep.
the old boiler room
Yep.
out in that
So
area.
that's where they were going to cover. It would pretty much cover that kind of that footprint.
Because I think
Right
you'd have a
out
lot
there.
of community resistance if you messed with any more white pine out there along 12.
Yep. Yep.
Oh.
No, it was back out there because it needs to also be in the sun. And then the judicial one was kind of towards the backside of that hill over here. So it would be out there. Yeah, they have to hit that proper sun to be able to take advantage of
Do you
it
think
all
this
day
looks
long.
better
So
on me than
Right.
And the other thing about the solar panels is they don't like to put them on hills. They like to put them on flat ground. It's much better. They can, set them much easier.
Yep.
So taking out trees and putting them on a hill, that really doesn't work. So I think the white pines are, safe.
So, to give you a little sticker shock, you're looking at a little under 10 million for the everything. They were talking about having probably about 2.5 to 3 million in instant rebates, call it. So some of the federal funding and grants and things like that they can get there. And so then that'd be that remaining about 7 million that would be paid off in savings over that next 15 years. So, and they're talking a 25-year lifespan. So obviously then you have 10 years of making money. As air quotes for the.
Yeah, the 25-year lifespan would be on the solar panels.
Right.
The geothermal system
I'll have to
would
take your word for that.
last longer than that.
Yeah. So,
25 years.
but once again, that particular proposal had a guarantee, and there could be other companies that do those types of things or have different funding models and how they go about proposing those options.
Do you know approximately how many acres like the solar would be? 5, 10, 20, 80?
I don't have it with me, but I do have the.
I'm just curious.
the
I
numbers,
don't,
just not here.
we don't have acreage size or I guess anything as far as the dimensions of the field right at this point. But, looking at it from their proposal, looking at the footprints,
3 acres each?
2 to 3 acres.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's not as big as you would think it would be.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, because
Yep.
we do got valuable land around here and I know some of it can't be built on, but I mean,
Yeah.
solar panels where you can't build, that'd be great, but
Yeah.
solar panels, you're gonna take up 20 acres of highly $100,000 acre land is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
But
no,
I mean,
it wouldn't be
so we
taken.
can move it to where it's not highly valuable, I think would be great.
So for the geothermal, because we already have a portion in the capital improvements, was switching it to geothermal much more, like that we need to add to the plan
Yes.
for this, for the first step or whatever.
Yeah, they didn't separate everything out, but
We got it at 2:30 today.
okay,
So,
okay.
So, yeah, the geothermal is about 4 million, and that isn't utilizing ours to do that. And I think one of the things that they brought up, and I think Scott's controls upgrade was a Band-Aid, right? That's still continuing to use the boiler and
Yes.
old air handlers and
Yep.
old chillers and all of that. And they had suggested that if you had to replace all of that and you replace it with the same thing, it would cost more than putting in a geothermal
Okay,
system.
so it's actually
Right.
doing the whole, because we have to do the whole system at some point. So.
You can continue to kick the can until it becomes an
Yeah.
emergency
Yeah.
or.
So
So-
with the replacement of the controls, you replace the controls a lot. There are pneumatic controls at the judicial center, especially in the jail. If you're upgrading those to electronic controls, you're getting an upgrade on your controls. But you still have the old equipment there. You have old air handlers, you have old, the heating coils and cooling coils. Those would still have to be switched out for a geothermal system. Your geothermal is a lot lower temperature. Makes a big difference. I can give you an example of one thing that happened when the Neighbors was built. Was that they spec'd it out originally to have they built the geothermal system, right? So you have a heat pump that gives you makes your your heat and your cooling. So they had water to water heat pumps in each of the houses that were spec'd out. Originally, the plan was to put in-floor heat in the concrete floor. Somewhere along the line, that got changed by someone. They didn't change the water to water heat pumps. They changed the in-floor heat and changed it to baseboard heat. Baseboard heat requires a higher temperature to get your heat out of it. So that requirement of higher heat makes you run your heat pumps, your water to water heat pumps more, burns them out, takes the compressors out. You can't get enough heat out of them. So in turn, with that system, that has put more stress on the heat pumps that are in the ceilings outside the rooms. So one of the issues with that whole system is there's a lot of strain on other parts of the system because of that change. And how that all went through, I don't know, but that was before my time.
Still need that tour of the geothermal systems.
Let's set up the next meeting. We'll set up, I'll take you back. We'll go through, show you the geothermal system here where we have our heat pumps. We can show you all that stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is set up very nice in this building. So yeah, we can take you back there and show you that.
Scott, it seems to me like the fact that we already have experience with geothermal as a process, that isn't that, do you anticipate that that's going to perhaps help to sell the concept of doing the same thing over at the Judicial Center, including that?
I would think it would.
Okay. Because I remember back when I covered, the whole Neighbors Project,
Mhm.
and just all of those nitty gritty bits and pieces. It was, there was some sense of trying to do things in as sustainable a fashion as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that they, in a lot of ways, they accomplished that pretty well
Sure.
at the Neighbors.
Yeah, and I think the Neighbors was built 2012, 2013.
Mhm.
They moved in October of 2013.
Mhm.
In that time, it was the bigger systems like that were probably newer.
Mhm.
And so it was a learning curve,
Yeah.
getting people sold on it as to what a geothermal system could do.
Yeah.
It has saved a lot at the Neighbors.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of repairs that have needed to be done on that system. This system here has been much better than the one in this building. There's differences in the systems, but yeah.
And so, and that would probably apply to, the system that would go into the Judicial Center.
Yeah.
Because the improvements are continuing to be made.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Or
When you're saying that they used to have the heated floor system for the Neighbors, they didn't put the tubes in the concrete, did they?
They did not, that got Xed out. So
did?
that's
Oh,
why
okay.
that's where they put the baseboard heat in place of it. And they did not put the tubes in when they poured the floors.
Okay.
any more questions? So, yeah, so you'll bring back a little more information, or how do we get an RFP started, or yeah?
Yeah,
That
well, I
one.
mean, the RFP would really just be,
Later.
there would be the whole capital improvement process and all of that. So I think it's really, we can bring that back and see if the committee here wants to start kind of pushing that towards the rest of the board to talk through that. Obviously, there's been components of this in the capital improvement project, but it isn't.
A lot bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right. And, you'll continue to have discussions around the capital improvement projects throughout the year, in the years to come. And as it relates to other large capital items that are in the watch. So I think, one of the unique pieces of this is it will pay for itself. So there's ways, I think the only way it happens is by borrowing to do it. But there's also some things to be said about the debt service can essentially be paid for by the savings. So I could have different impacts on the levy as well. So lots of different ways of going about that.
Do we know if the, what do they call it? Is it IRA or isn't there some funding from the federal, like the infrastructure
The-
bill that, like, will that
Inflation
expire?
Reduction Act.
Yeah, okay, it is IRA.
Yeah. So some of those funds are kind of included in that paying for itself over 15 years is through the savings and then some of the tax rebates that you would get through that whole project. So there is something to be said about timing. But you could also assume that some of these energy efficient programs could continue in the future. They could end at any time too, right? So,
Right.
so, yeah.
And I think Dan will agree with me, but as we go forward with this, we'll definitely present any information we have, keep everything transparent as far as what we know, what numbers are, what everything is, bring it to the committee and you guys will know what we know.
So did they talk anything about smaller things, or were we just looking at kind of the big, like, are there things, easy things, smaller things for energy?
So and so Scott had mentioned the LED lights was one of the things that they had talked about, but that's a project that he's been doing anyway. So that's one of the big ways that they find savings, and that's because that's an immediate rebate, but also that long-term savings. But they did a full evaluation of every one of these buildings, and essentially said that the HVAC system you have in this building is as good as it's going to get. And the same with the neighbors. And so that's why you don't see that. There really isn't, I think a lot of care had been taken in this building and in the neighbors to have them efficient. And that's kind of what they found. And that's where solar was really the only additional benefit that they could find.
Great. Keep up the good work.
I just want to add that Don Keeter would be really delighted.
I agree he would.
Yeah. Thank you. Any miscellaneous at the end or?
No miscellaneous really in the end, but I was just gonna add to go along with energy is that I do have my staff using electric weed whips and electric push mower now,
Oh,
saving some fuel. So we're working toward the green there too. So the guys really like the weed whips, the electric ones, and then the electric push mower is really nice. Don't have to worry about them mixing gas for a weed whip or adding gas or oil into the mowers. So the electric is going really nice. They're appreciating it.
probably don't have all those fumes.
No, don't have the fumes, don't have to carry the gas out there in the trucks, not as loud. So yeah,
Are they lighter?
they're a little lighter. Yeah. Yep.
I got a miscellaneous question,
Yes, sir.
and Dan's already heard my speech on it. I was all prepared to come to the meeting tonight and say, I've reviewed the building project across from the middle school, and this is what I see as additional housing units. There you go. And I am blown away at the number of, is there 50, is there gonna be 52 units up over the hill?
That's the new complex. Yep. Then the other one on the top of the hill. Yep. Count them yourself.
Okay, well, I always kind of wondered how they were going to engineer that. Not that I'm an engineer, but I still wonder things. And when you turn west after the middle school and head up that way, they cut that hill
Mm-hmm.
like about 60 feet,
They blasted it.
straight up and down.
Mhm.
And they
I know.
built houses. And they went over the top
Mm-hmm.
and it comes down around, stop sign by the fairgrounds, rec park, old jail, you name it. And so I do see, a big pressure for my little part of the world at the Dunn County Fair of people walking to the fair and walking in for free. So I'll keep asking to see what it would cost to fence that with gates where they may be or may not be. But the implosion of new residents there is going to be dramatic. I mean, I thought I could count them, but I couldn't. And I mean, because, each unit, are they 4 or are they 6 or whatever it is, and
thought they
they're
were
on both
8 and
sides of the
12.
road.
Yeah.
What-
I thought they were 8 and 12.
You
Yeah.
think there could be 8
Well,
and
it-
12?
It's a, it's a mixed, it's
Okay.
mixed juice.
But we're gonna have a
It's
lot of
mixed
new,
juice
new
process.
residents just,
Mhm.
next to Dunn County property.
You station someone up on that walkway?
Pardon me?
Station someone to catch people up at the top?
I keep jabbering about this and they're gonna buy me a cap and a badge.
Right, you can be up there. on
We finally got a job for Larry where he actually can be effective.
No, Larry, your job is to help with the ice cream stand.
That's right. Keep the inventory fresh.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just, it's amazing to me, Dan, up there and what they're doing and I mean, I don't think there's ever been a housing development in Menominee that would even come close to this. And it's, it's right on our doorstep, so I thought the bicycle guys were gonna be asking us about a loop through the rec park and back over the top.
Well, you offered them facilities, like, or like a training.
That would be an Ironman, but
Training.
those guys, I mean, I've got a brother-in-law, and if they don't turn out 50 to 100 miles on their bike ride, they think they're not trying. So, okay, that's all I got. I just,
I like
Keep
to
thinking.
add a little bit to his story there. Okay, when the fair's going on, you got all these people walking in for free. And you think of all the money that we're losing at the time, which the county could be using. So you think that a little investment for stopping our way of making more money. That's all he's trying to talk about. But other than that, sure, we might as well make it a free fare and just charge for parking. Other than that, thank you.
All right, any other miscellaneous or announcements? All right, so 8, we don't have any action to be taken and no ordinances and resolutions. So our next meeting is June 26th at 6 PM. All right, so we are adjourned. Thank you all.